The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks.
Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome into another episode of the Orange Zone podcast. This is Ashley Wenskoski. We have James Mungro. I'm Samantha Croston, and we have Rachel Culver on the producer mic. Syracuse is 2-0. It's a bye week now. How we feeling?
Oh, we're feeling good. If you're a Syracuse fan right now, I think you're feeling good.
Exactly. If you're a Syracuse fan, we've been waiting so long for this, and now it's finally here. Let's enjoy this.
Good time to tell you that you can watch or listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, and we're everywhere on social media these days, so give us a follow and please subscribe. New episodes are released every Wednesday. That's when we'll be dropping them from now for the rest of the season. And week 2, Syracuse won against a number 23rd ranked Georgia Tech team, 31-28. It was the first win over Georgia Tech since 2020. They now also moved to 2-3 all time against the Yellow Jackets. From a prediction standpoint, and then we'll get into the actual game, 3 of us picked Syracuse to win.
Yes, sir.
So Ashley is now the only one with a 1 in the L
Tough.
column.
I have a 1 in the L column. You know what? But that's okay. I'm glad I was proven wrong for the best. I'm not going to complain about it.
And honestly, I really think that if all of us say that Syracuse is going to win, it's a bad look.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that you gave it a shot. And I was honestly equal parts happy and surprised. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I really wasn't surprised.
I
I just wasn't. I think Fran is doing a great job there, and the guys are believing. Watching that game was so good to watch Syracuse University play good football.
Yeah.
Credit to the offense and the defense, coaching staff. The kids are believing into the philosophy of what Coach Brown is saying, and each week they're getting better so far.
Yeah, not only Coach Brown, but I think the offense just believes so heavily in Kyle McCord, and we can get into it and how impressive he's been. But when you have Kyle McCord under center, I truly think that the offense just trusts and believes in him.
Yep, I think we may as well start with the offense. Kyle McCord went 32 for 46, completing nearly 70% of his passes. He threw 4 touchdowns, and he was sacked just 1 time. That alone is enough information to let it rip. He was sacked 1 time.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. You see what happens when you have a quarterback. It's very, very evident that when you have a quarterback there that could run, throw the ball, and just really take over the game, and that's what he did. He knows how to guide the game and play within his levels, and it just shows. I'm so excited to have a quarterback back there finally.
Yeah, there is not a quarterback in the country right now that has more passing touchdowns than Kyle McCord with his 8 through 2 games. 735 passing yards through 2 games is just absurd. That is just crazy. Leads the ACC. And you know what I took away from this Georgia Tech win, which I saw some people point out on social media as well? Kyle McCord had a little fire in this Georgia Tech win. Not only did we see a little bit of Little League Kyle, who Fran Brown refers to his alter ego when he runs the ball. He had his longest rushing attempt. I think it was on 3rd and 3. He ran for 16 yards. Spiked the ball afterwards, by the way, which how that was not a penalty, I don't know. But and then we also saw him kind of just really fired up, screaming on the sidelines, screaming some. There was a clip that went viral. I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Screaming some choice words about the Yellow Jackets.
I love to see that, though.
Yeah,
it seems like he's sort of a different player than he was when he was at Ohio State. And the way he was acting out there, it made me realize that maybe he had heard some of the comments about people who said he was only good because he was at Ohio State. And I think in 2 games, he has proved time after time that that's not true.
Well, I'm so glad he's here with Syracuse. Like I said before, with him, how he's been able to spread the ball around and just totally take over the game as an offense and being the leader out there. Sky's the limit. And there's so many more little things that he could do better and the team could do better. So as long as they improve, things could be so good for Syracuse this year.
Kyle McCord is on his revenge tour, not only for Ohio State and everybody over there and the fact that he kind of got showed the door, but I think also just for the national media that has kind of undervalued him last year, going into this year at Syracuse. I think it was RG3 tweeted, "Allow Kyle McCord to reintroduce himself," which is what I feel like he's doing.
It has. It's totally been a reintroduction, a reinvention in some ways. He was named the ACC's co-quarterback of the week on Monday, sharing the honor with Clemson's Cade Klubnik. But to both of your points, it's not just Kyle McCord that you're seeing that makes this year's football team different. I think it's all of the players and weapons that he has around him. There were 8 different players who caught passes from McCord in this game, including Trevor Pena, who had 6 receptions for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. You had Gadsden, the second, who had 6 receptions for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. They were the 2 guys who stood out, but there were a lot of options here.
there was a lot of options out there, and everybody's picking their game up because now the standards are set high, and there's no the standards are set high, and Kyle set the standards, the wide receiver set the standards, the running backs, and so when you get your opportunity out there, you got to take it because there's a lot of receivers out there.
Yeah, Kyle McCord leads the country in passing touchdowns. Trevor Pena is at the top of that list for receiving touchdowns with 4, and then he has another one rushing. So he has 5 on the year. I think he's been such a pleasant surprise, and we can get into it a little bit. But his kind of journey into this spot with Syracuse and with Fran Brown is a really interesting one.
Well, you look through kind of his story in particular, and in 2023, Syracuse's receiving touchdown leaders all season were Dan Villari with 3, Umari Hasher with 3, and Damian Alford with 3. And you mentioned it, Pena has surpassed that already. That alone is a stat.
Yeah, Pena, also just how he got to this point I think is so interesting, right? He was hurt all of last season. He came to Syracuse. It was his only Power 5 offer, so he took it at the time. He was telling us about this, I think, at Players last week. But Fran Brown liked him all along. It was when Fran Brown was at Temple, and then when he moved to Rutgers that Pena was kind of going through his recruiting process. Fran Brown was trying to get him to go first to Temple, then to Rutgers. He said, I'm going to go with my – I don't think he had a Rutgers offer fully, so he said, I'm going to go with my Syracuse, my only Power 5 offer. And now Fran Brown gets to coach him. So it's another instance. How Fran Brown keeps stumbling upon these, even accidentally, right? Because Pena was already on the team. Another instance of Fran Brown is a guy who's always believed in him, and now he's allowing him to shine.
And that's the thing with Coach Brown, connecting with the players and players connecting with Coach Brown. With the way he's doing it, it's just so good to see how over the past few years, it's been terrible. I mean, it's terrible to wear the Syracuse gear out and, you're getting crushed, and it's just sad. But, no, with him being there now, the whole philosophy, the whole town has changed. I mean, it's Syracuse football, baby. And it's something to be excited about because we have not had good football in a long time. It's been very embarrassing to see our quarterback out there struggling and trying to run for his life, getting sacked time after time. And guess what? All that crap is over with. We got a good football team.
Such a good feeling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it reminds me of one thing that was said in the press conference where he essentially said, we're going to put the S back on the map. This is something he takes a lot of pride in. You could see it at 9:45 in the morning when they're all in their custom-made suits and they're doing a quad walk, a tradition that I don't believe was ever here at Syracuse, or did they bring it back?
They brought it back.
They brought it back. But even to the end of the game, where you're seeing him going over to the student section and he's talking about that afterwards, how he's taking pride in that. And he said, I'm everybody's coach. That stuck out to me. Like, this is a guy who wants everyone on board. And I thought he was actually pretty honest. I was listening to him talk in a radio show that he does on Thursdays, and they had asked him about the energy in the Dome. He was like, listen, I've been in some really loud places, and I've traveled to places where the energy was amazing. I think Syracuse can get there, but he kind of holds fans accountable to really show out for him, and now I think he's doing what he can to earn that.
It also helps too when Dwight Freeney is getting his jersey retired with his name on the rafters. That's even a bigger motivation. You have a Hall of Famer there, and the kids can see this individual there coming back, getting his names in the rafter, and that's just a great opportunity to perform in front of people and know how important this university is for people.
What did you think about that, by the way?
I thought it was great. I thought it was excellent. It's well-deserving. I had the opportunity to play with him. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it there this weekend, but it was a well-deserved opportunity. And Dwight's one of the greatest defense that ever played the game.
Yeah, I think to your point, what you were talking about, just Fran with the game day experience, kind of focusing on those things, I think it shows in everything he's doing. Like you mentioned, the alma mater, they're all standing there, like, hugging each other, singing it with the student section. It's just a cohesive feeling that you didn't feel for many of the last few years, to put it lightly.
Yeah, you say that very lightly.
But I remember your frustration.
Oh, my
just
gosh, frustration wasn't the word. It was just like... Then I got teammates saying, "Man, don't show us on national TV. This is embarrassing." I mean, oh goodness, it was tough. But guess what? Let's enjoy what we have right now because this is going to be a very interesting year. And as long as they keep improving, and there's things they need to work on. There's some things out there. Tackle on the ball carrier because the quarterback in the beginning of the game, got loose a couple times and scored. We cleaned that up, and we had him sacked in the background, in the backfield. We cleaned that up. I mean, we're going to get better. So, tackle on the penalties, we focus on that and continue to get better. We're going to be in a hell of a situation at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that quarterback could run.
Haynes King.
He turned on the damn Jets.
Yeah.
And I think we got to all admit that. Like,
Yeah.
that it was impressive what he was able to do out there. But yes, I agree.
And that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that reminded me of last year's quarterback in the previous years. It's like, okay, we stopped them, and now the quarterback had to do some things. And he did do some things. He's a good quarterback. But at the end of the game, as you notice, it was kind of like, okay, we're not doing good on, throwing the ball and running the ball. So, the quarterback is trying to do everything himself.
Yeah.
And that's how we played previously. But guess what? Not no more.
No, you're
Not
right.
no more.
And we don't have to do that.
We don't have to
like
do
I
that,
think I
yes.
think that's the thing is Syracuse doesn't have to do that anymore because to me, McCord seems very composed, and maybe this brings us into one of our next points here, which is that the O-line was a big question mark coming into this year, and in many ways that question has been answered.
They were very physical. Again, like you said in the very beginning, 2 sacks so far the whole year.
Yep.
That's unheard of for Syracuse.
Because Big Spoon's got your blind side, baby.
Yes, sir.
Demetrius Weatherspoon. We got to just give him some credit where credit's due. It was the O-line as a whole, but Big Spoon was also named the ACC's Offensive Lineman of the Week. He was Syracuse's highest graded offensive lineman by Pro Football Focus, and he was the Orange's highest graded lineman on Saturday. He has not surrendered a sack. He's been really good. He's also a Howard transfer.
Yeah, McCord sacked just twice all year, like you mentioned. But what stuck out to me was he threw the ball 46 times. First of all, he threw the ball 46 times. Let's just talk about that for a second. Against Georgia Tech, and he was only touched 4 times. That's
great.
crazy.
That's a hell of a statistic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, he seems very calm. I know, coming into the year, everybody said, oh, he has a great pocket presence. But to just have a little bit of time to look around, to find some options, he looks calm and composed, and I think he can only feel that way because of the O-line's performance.
And there's a lot of yards, like I just said previously, that was left out there. That, guys, the ball was spot on, and then, McCord missed a couple guys, for a first down. But besides that, the third down conversion was unbelievable.
Yep.
Was it, I forget what the statistic was, but it was very high. It was a lot better than Georgia Tech, that only had seven third down conversions to our, I think, like 17.
Yeah, McCord is playing looser, and I think a part of that is what we touched on, right? You leave the Ohio State, you kind of just new change of scenery. But another part of that is the O-line. He feels like he can play looser because this O-line is actually protecting him. And like you were saying, they've been perfect in the red zone and perfect on 4th down. I believe they were 2 for 2 on 4th down in that game.
Yes,
which is impressive. And I think even that was kind of like Coach Brown had also mentioned in his press conference, there was kind of like a pride element there. Like, hey, if you're going to go for it on 4th down and try it, I'm going to go for it on 4th down and try it. And I know Ashley has some things to say about that.
We should talk about the press conference.
Yeah, we should. Let's get into the drama a little bit because I think it all kind of, helped with the storyline.
Yeah, social media was loving Fran Brown's little comments about, he said, he went as far to look in the camera and be like, so who won on 4th down today? He was fired up. He said, he said, when you play us, just be quiet. Don't give no ammo to me. You give ammo to me, I'm coming at you full tilt. Georgia Tech fans were not thrilled by that comment, but it was a little bit of drama brewing all week. Brent Key, earlier in the week during his press conference, said that beating Syracuse or trying to beat Syracuse wasn't really about the X's and O's. It was just about physicality, coming up here and being physical. Fran Brown said that he took that really personally. He said, what do you mean? Is it because we're Northeast football, we're physical up here too? He said literally 4 or 5 times that he took that personally. Go ahead.
So, I heard you guys talking about what happened.
Yeah.
And this is how I think what really went down.
Yep.
Coach did what he did, being respectful of giving the other coach credit.
Yes.
The other coach from Georgia Tech did not acknowledge that at all, by no means, to try to just brush it off. Okay? Coach did the perfect thing what a coach should do. Give the other team credit. Now, the other team, Georgia Tech coach, just brushed it off and said, I don't remember you from other team, from Georgia. Well, I guess what? He remembers them now. He'll remember the Fran Brown's name now. And that's all Fran's talking about is respect. And that's what these coaches and players need to earn, and they're earning their respect now because, the Georgia Tech coach can say whatever he wants to say. But at the end of the day, like you said, 2 for 2 for 4th down, and who has the W?
Yep.
So guess what? Next year, Georgia Tech's coach will come with a little bit more humble, and say, I do remember Fran Brown. I do remember what Syracuse did to us last year.
Yeah, little Georgia Tech-Syracuse rivalry. I agree with you. That's what I was going to say. I think all that stuff on social media was a little bit taken out of context because you had to look at what happened earlier in the week. Monday, Fran says, I really respect that guy. I know his family in terms of Brent Key. We were on Western Carolina together. Tuesday, Brent Key says, I don't really know that guy. He's on the other side of the ball. That pissed Fran Brown off. Like, that just is what it is. And also, I think you have to recognize that Fran Brown came from Georgia, right? Brent Key at Georgia Tech, they were likely recruiting against each other.
Yes.
There's no way that Brent Key didn't know who Fran Brown was.
I agree with that. Mind you, I also think it's important because I did see a lot of the conversation with the Georgia Tech fans. Like, I think that in a way, Coach Brown interpreted some things the way that he wanted to so that it would help with the motivation. No one was
Absolutely.
and I want people to know that we all know that. Like, there were some things he was saying that I don't think that Coach Key explicitly said, but that Coach Brown interpreted a certain way, wanted to use his motivation to build his players up, and played certain clips all week saying what he needed to say to get his players fired up.
And if you don't know who the captain is, and that's Coach Brown, you damn sure don't know who the first mates are, and that's the players.
Yeah.
So the players and the coaching staff went out there, they made a name for themselves.
Yeah, and you have to remember something. Also here on the Georgia note, Fran Brown comes from the Kirby Smart coaching tree. And if you know anything about college football, Georgia loves to do that stuff to their players all the time. Georgia was convincing their players a couple years ago that they were going to go 7-5. Was Georgia going to go 7-5? No. But Fran Brown comes from that, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a philosophy, but just interpreting things to fire up your players. It worked.
He knows how to motivate his players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And any little thing, and we can spin off him a little bit more. I mean, a coach is a coach. Coach has to know how to motivate the players, and he's sure enough knows how to do it.
Literally whatever works, and it worked.
I think his favorite arena to be in, from what I've seen so far, is being the underdog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Loves it. Like, he wants to be underrated. If you think about his background and where he came from and what he had to do to get here, I even think they could go out there and the Syracuse team could play a perfect game and he'd go in on Monday and be like, here's 5-6 things you did wrong.
Oh, of course.
And not to say I think he appreciates the achievements and accomplishments, but he always wants to get better too. There is definitely a balance with him, and I think he's always striving for perfection, even in his own life. Like, I remember feeling that way when I was listening to him in his press conferences and he's getting up at 4:45 and he's working out every day.
Yeah.
Like he is leading by example in that way. That's how he leads his own life. So of course you have to think, yeah, that's how he's going to teach and motivate his players too. I think that's what the Dart philosophy is all about.
Yeah, I think it worked. I saw, the Georgia Tech fans were doing the whole, this is good because you won, but this philosophy doesn't work if you don't win. I don't agree with that. Even if they lose that game, he's probably not as vocal in the press conference, for sure, if they're on the other side of that final score. But I still think that philosophy is one that he stands by. Like you said, he's been the underdog his whole life. Camden, New Jersey. Like, this guy quite literally rose out of a situation that many do not make it out of to now being a Power 5 head coach.
And that alone is the context you needed to see this. I'll also give another hot take. I know that people were wondering if there was a chance they would be ranked right now. I'm so happy they aren't. I'm thrilled. I would rather them ride kind of as secretly as they can as a team that's actually pretty good for as long as they can.
Well, I don't think it's
so
a
there's
secret
less
no
attention
more,
on
See,
them.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a secret no more because I think we're earning the country's respect and other coaches' respect as well, and other ACC teams. So I think now, with what's going on, being 2-0, now we have a bye week. The stakes are going to get higher every single week. And the thing about with Fran is this. You've seen from the first game against Ohio to now, they improved. Long as you keep improving, you can't just stay still and like, yeah, we're a good team. No. There's a lot more things you can improve on. Penalties. They have different formations they're working on. As long as you improve, things will get better. And as long as you keep believing. Once you think that you're on top, that's when the ship sinks.
Yeah, on the ranked note, I know this is going to anger some people, but I'm just really sorry. I don't think you deserve to be ranked after beating Ohio and number 23, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech falls out of the rank now. If it was Ohio and a different caliber, if it was Ohio
I disagree, though. I disagree with that. They should. I think where they're at is good, like you were saying, but I do think they should have been in rankings this week because, look, Boston College is ranked. Who did Boston
College? Yeah, but they beat a higher-ranked Florida State team, didn't they?
and Georgia Tech beat Florida State.
I know. You can.
And then Boston College went out and played my son's university, Duquesne University, and I texted him beforehand. I feel sorry for you guys.
Yeah, no, seriously.
So did they really play a good football team, Boston College? They played one team.
Hey, ready?
So we can
Let's
talk
make it
about
our question of the week. And let's ask the audience, do you think that they should have been ranked this week? And obviously we know a lot of the people who listen to us are Syracuse-based people, but I'm curious, what do you honestly think? In your opinion, is what they did in 2 games good enough to be ranked or not?
I also think the rank, you can't really take the rank seriously until week 4 or 5. You got to see how some things shake out. Even if they were ranked this week, okay. I think you go out there, you blow out Stanford, you blow out Holy Cross, hopefully, and then you're 4-0, and I think you absolutely should be ranked at that point.
And we'll see what happens. We'll see what the voters say. To your point on improvement, there's 2 other things I wanted to point out. The penalties, they committed just 5 penalties. And the run defense, I think, also stepped up to the challenge here. This is going off of some of Rachel's notes. She said only allowed 112 yards, where last week they allowed 255. You want to talk about improvement? That's improvement.
That's improvement, and that's the big key. Now it's improvement of making tackles. Once you start making tackles, that number gets lower down. So many yards, and they had probably a good 20 yards. They could have probably scratched off of that if they would just made the tackle.
I still felt that. Like, I was looking at their tackling, and I was thinking about everything that you said last week, and I was like, I do feel that the tackling, there's room to grow there still.
It is, and it's still early in the season, but again, they're improving, and that's all you want to see from your football team.
Yeah, a huge part of that was Fadil Diggs. Obviously, he's usually that edge, kind of that rush the quarterback spot, but after Marlowe went down, Elijah Robinson gave him a crash course at linebacker last week, and we saw him more in that middle linebacker spot. He was tied for the team lead with 7 tackles. And, Fran Brown said that, he's not a linebacker. It was just for this defense this week. But he said we were able to replace Marlowe for a quick weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if they stick with Fadil in kind of that spot. Of course, you got Derek McDonald there as well. We were kind of thought we were going to see some James Hurd, but we didn't really end up seeing him. It'll be interesting to see what they do there for as long as Marlowe's out.
And the defense, again, they're getting their confidence as well throughout the game. By the end of the game, the defense was going out there, 3 and out,
Yeah.
and that's just, and then they're, getting some penetration with all the defensive linemen. They were, penetrating, getting to the quarterback, putting more pressure on them. You just got to keep, big tackles. They get big tackles, they're going to be in a hell of a position this year, and defense is just improving.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about special teams. I know we touched on it a little bit in our after the game recap episode, but special teams certainly leave something to be desired. Got to clean up some of those things. The blocked field goal, the onside kick. That game is a much wider margin of win, if not for those special teams mistakes. Exactly,
and they're the things that they'll improve on. The onside kick when they got it back at the end of the game. They scored a couple touchdowns at the end, at the very end. But we had the game secured, and we had control of the game. Things like that happen, and we were able to, in a game, things are going to happen like that, and you have to overcome those adversities, and we did. We did.
Yeah, I think what you have to take away from it, like to your point, Syracuse had control of that game. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They dominated the time of possession. Syracuse was going to win that game. It just didn't have to be quite that close, if not for those special teams mistakes.
And honestly, thank God Syracuse did have control of that game, because if not, I mean,
that
onside kick, I mean, they paid for it immediately.
Yes.
And you could kind of feel the dome deflate in that moment. But to your point, right? I don't think that's the last time something like that's going to happen.
Yes.
And I think that's why football is a long game.
Both teams are going to do that. It's the team that makes the least amount of mistakes or normally wins the game.
Yeah.
And, that was a mistake, but, Syracuse did put themselves in the position, so it didn't hurt them as much.
And those are mistakes you can survive when you have a guy like Kyle McCord who's put you in a really good offensive position before that. I think they were up by 2 touchdowns. So you have a little bit of breathing room. You can survive some things like that. It's a luxury they didn't have in years prior.
There's one thing I was really impressed about was the second half drive. When they came out the second half and they really took the time off the clock, that was impressive, and that's what we needed to get started for the second half, and we scored, that type, and that was impressive, and I just loved the way he managed the clock and managed the game.
They're playing smart football,
yes.
Even on that last drive of the game when the clock was running out. LeQuint had a long rush, and he probably could have got in for the touchdown, but instead he slid down, kept the clock running to just end the game.
Yes.
That was a really smart play, and I remember for a second watching it and being like, why did he do that? He could have taken that to the house. And then I was like, keep the clock running. Smart football.
And that to me smart coaching
Yep.
because the fact he knew to do that,
Yes.
right? Like
Yep.
that, I have to imagine, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but that seems like the kind of thing that Coach Brown had prepped him for. Like he knew to do that. It was really smart football. It showed a
smart.
really high level of IQ. Like in my opinion, one of the more important plays of the game.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's what I like to see is all of these different aspects that last year you just maybe didn't see as much, down to the discipline, down to the penalties, to the little things. And we all the little things ultimately make the big things,
Absolutely right.
Final thoughts on Syracuse football before we wrap it up and see everybody next week.
Final thoughts. I think they're in a good spot, right? A little bit of an early bye week. It's only week 3. Kind of weird to not have a football game this week. But for a team that is still looking to clean up just some of the things that come with a new coaching staff and a new team, like we've been talking about, clean up some of those defensive things, even give the guys' bodies a break already. Just a week off can never be a bad thing. Let them reset their minds, reset their bodies, and come out against Stanford next Friday, hopefully to a sold-out crowd. It is a 7:30 game on Friday, ESPN, primetime. Got to pack that dome.
I mean, the dome's going to get louder. Each week, that dome's going to get louder. And Coach Brown just has experienced the beginning part of the loudness, but it's going to get a lot louder. A lot louder.
A lot louder. Listen, there's
a lot louder.
well, you know what? He earned that. My one final thought would just be, I just time after time don't know how Vegas always knows. Like the spread for this game was 3 points, and you see Syracuse up by far more than 3 points. And what happens at the end of the game? A 31-28 win. I don't know how Vegas always knows.
It's so funny you said that because over the weekend I talked to my buddy about gambling and betting because at the very beginning, Syracuse odds of making the playoffs was 8,000. I don't know if you guys know about this at all.
Yep.
So it was at 8,000. Now it went to 4,000. Now I think it's at 3,000 for them to make the playoff. So I know a couple people that threw some money out there. I'm not a bettor at all. That on Syracuse for them to make the playoffs. And it's amazing. I asked my buddy, I said, so how do they do this betting stuff? Like how the statistics, analytics, and all that stuff, how does that all play a role? And like how is it always so close? Not always, but 9 out of 10 times it is that close. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I guess if I knew, I guess I would win a lot of money.
I guess if anybody knew, then they wouldn't be in business anymore. So always remember that, folks. They just stay in business because they win more than we do. Thanks so much for joining us. Another episode of the Orange Zone. We'll see you back here next Wednesday.